Never ever mess with the quiet kid at work. Especially when you're fast asleep in the passenger seat of your own truck. Back in the early 2000s when I was just an 18-year-old kid with a baby face, I pulled a prank so terrifying, it made my abusive boss literally ruin his own pants, scream for his life, and try to have me arrested for attempted murder. And honestly, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Here is how I used a 40-ton Peterbilt semi-truck to break the meanest alcoholic in the Canadian oil patch. It all started when I got my first real job doing well testing in Canada. For an 18-year-old with zero experience and no education, $20 an hour was life-changing money, especially back when minimum wage was under $6. The job itself wasn't bad. Mostly setting up pipes, flaring gas wells, and reading gauges. The job wasn't the problem. The problem was Gary. Gary was my supervisor. He was a mean-spirited, overweight alcoholic in his mid-50s who spent 90% of his 12-hour shifts inside the trailer watching DVDs, napping, and typing data. The only time he'd help me was if a pipe was literally too heavy for a single human to lift. And when he wasn't being lazy, he was picking on me. Now, I'm not a small guy, I'm about 6 feet 1 inch, but back then I lacked confidence. Gary knew it. He called me stupid daily. But the breaking point came when he found out my dad hadn't been in my life. The next time I made a minor mistake, Gary smirked and said, "No wonder your dad walked out on you." When I called him out, he gave the classic asshole defense. "Oh, what, you can't take a joke?" All I did was get quiet. I needed the job. But inside, the gears were turning. Voiceover. Because we worked way out in the middle of nowhere, we had to drive 100 to 350 kilometers every single day. Now, Gary got paid over $1 per kilometer for using his truck. He was making a killing just for driving. But because he spent every single night downing whiskey at local small-town bars, he was horribly hungover every morning. So what did he do? He abused his power. He forced me to drive his truck while I only got paid minimum wage for travel time. He would climb into the passenger seat and sleep like a gym-bloated corpse until we hit the job site. 3 months of this. 3 months of verbal abuse, exploitation, and demeaning comments. One night at dinner I finally snapped. I calmly suggested that since I was doing all his driving while he got paid the big mileage bucks, maybe he should kick a few dollars my way. Gary went absolutely ballistic. He screamed, threw insults, and threatened my job. It actually reduced me to angry tears. That was the moment my instinct for self-preservation completely vanished. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted just tick. Eat. The very next morning, serendipity delivered. Gary was once again passed out in his travel coma in the passenger seat, completely oblivious to the world. About 30 kilometers from the job site, I spotted a massive semi-truck parked in a highway pullout. The engine was running, and the driver was standing outside. I instantly formulated a plan. I pulled over quietly. Gary didn't stir. He always needed to be shaken awake with intent. I hopped out, walked up to the trucker, and asked him for a massive favor. The guy looked at me, smiled, and agreed to the terms. I got back in, put Gary's truck in gear, and carefully maneuvered it until we were parked nearly bumper to bumper, facing that giant beautiful Peterbilt semi-truck head-on. I gave the signal. The trucker flipped on his blinding high-beam headlights. And then, with total commitment to instilling pure, unadulterated terror, he slammed on his air horn. It sounded like the horn of Helm's Deep. At the exact same microsecond, I did my part. I mashed Gary's steering wheel horn, screamed at the absolute top of my lungs, and yelled, "Effie, we're gonna die." When that wall of sound hit Gary, he literally launched out of his seat and dented the ceiling of the truck. The sheer terror instantly caused his bowels to completely surrender. He didn't just look scared. He looked like a man who had seen the Grim Reaper. As he tried to process that he wasn't dead, his panic turned into pure apoplexy and rage. He was shaking so violently he couldn't even choke out his death threats properly. I casually threw the truck into reverse, peeled off down the highway, and gave the friendly trucker a wave. 10 seconds later, Gary managed to scream that he had dangerously high blood pressure, and that I could have killed him with a stroke. Years later, I actually went to paramedic school, so looking back, yeah, he was probably right. But at 18, I had no idea. I just looked at his bright purple face, started laughing like a hyena, and said, "Oh, come on, Gary. Can't you take a joke?" For the next 20 minutes, Gary fought the urge to murder me while simultaneously trying not to stroke out. The moment we hit the site, he ordered me out, told me I was fired, and stomped away to call the company owner to report an attempted murder. I just sat on a rock, smoked cigarettes, and laughed for 4 hours until the company owner arrived to pick me up. The owner turned out to be a great guy. On the drive back to the city, I told him the absolute truth about Gary's bullying, the driving exploitation, and the final truck prank. The owner listened, sat in silence for a second, and then burst out laughing. I didn't get fired from the company. I just got transferred to a different crew. And I instantly earned legendary street cred with all the other guys in the shop. As for Gary, he had to drive his own truck hungover from then on. So tell me in the comments, was this a bit too petty? Or did Gary get exactly what he deserved?